This episode's brought to you by Chubbies. Go to chubbyshorts.com and use code DAN20 for a special offer, and stay tuned after the video for more info. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell, here to talk about the last several episodes of Andor. I'm going to be talking about episodes 4 through 9. The last 3 dropped earlier this week. And yes, I do understand the irony of talking about Star Wars in a Star Trek shirt. But I see this as kind of a cross-franchise show of support, because even though Star Trek is kind of my first love, I still really enjoy Star Wars, and I love Andor. And these last several episodes, I think, has been the show at the best we've seen it so far. I was down for some routine medical stuff earlier this week, so this video is a bit later than I would want it to be, but I wanted to recognize just how great I thought the last several episodes have been, and particularly the last 3 that we got. Now, I didn't review episodes 4 through 6 on their own, but I think it's just as well, because when you look at the last batch of 6 episodes that we've gotten, it really forms the core of this latest season, and it's the story of Ghorman. Now, I'm not super immersed in the deep Star Wars mythology, but I knew that Ghorman had already been baked into the canon as a turning point for the Rebel Alliance. And I think that what Andor did here was to do what they've done several times, which is to acknowledge the canon, which had to do with Tarkin and a spaceship landing, but then expand on that, turn it into something deeper. And what we got with these episodes was really a portrait of the Empire at its most effective and its most brutal. Now, it should go without saying, but I am going to talk in detail about the events of these past several episodes of Andor. So if you haven't seen those episodes, pause this video, please go watch them right now and then come back. But if you have seen them, let's talk about the last few hours of Andor.
Supervisor Murrell.
Proceed.
The first season showed us an empire that was bloated and lazy, complacent. They didn't think that anyone would be bold enough to oppose their rule. And I think that if they had continued down that line too far, then you run the risk of nerfing the Empire too much, making them seem like they're not enough of a threat. But what they've done in season 2 is to show us how the Empire was able to hold on to the power that they did. And that's really put under the microscope with Ghorman, because what we see here is a plan that is masterminded by Dedra and that is executed brilliantly with all of the tools that the Empire has at their disposal. Brute force, propaganda, mind games, everything. And it's really, really well done. We start with the Empire beginning its occupation of Ghorman, building what they say is a simple base of operations, but the spider's web of deception has already begun. And for the Empire, they don't see a planet, they don't see a people, they see a resource. And this was all set up back in the first 3 episodes when we first hear about their plan, which is to mine this mineral called calcite, which they need to build the Death Star. But in order to do that, they may have to completely destabilize the planet. So what they have to do is build some kind of an excuse for, first of all, bringing all of this equipment to Ghorman, and then getting all of the people out of it and destroying the planet, potentially. Syril Karn is an incredibly fascinating character, and in episodes 4 through 6, we see just how easily he's manipulated. Dedra knows that he's desperate to prove himself and to show the Empire that he's worth a damn, as redemption for the mess he made on Ferrix. So he's sent to this ragtag developing insurgency to both collect information and feed them information, thinking that what he's doing is rooting out these rebels, completing the job that he tried to do with Cassian, and maybe building up his own reputation in the Empire. That's what he's wanted all along. But Dedra's manipulation of him is brilliant, and Denise Goff and Kyle Soller deserve so much credit for the characters that they've built over these 2 seasons so far. They're both tragic in their own way and also despicable in their own way, but really Syril and his little beret are so proud of the work he's doing for the Empire, and it's work that will eventually lead to his own death. Dedra might be one of the savviest Imperials that we've seen in the entire Star Wars franchise so far. I mean, she's right up there with the best/worst of the Empire. And what we see is that she's the only one from the beginning that really understands the importance of controlling this insurgency, finding people to do the wrong thing, as she told Krennic all the way back in those first couple of episodes. And when we fast forward a year later in that second block that we just got, episodes 7 through 9, we see that the Empire has set the trap and now all they have to do is to spring it. Luthen is one of my favorite characters on the show, and he's been one step ahead of the Empire this entire series, but even he plays right into their hands on Ghorman. He backs the rebels with the support that they need to build this insurgency on the planet that will give the Empire what they want, which is this big public conflict, something that nobody can ignore, something that they can use as a propaganda tool to show the slain martyrs of the Empire who were killed by the rebel scum on this planet, completely unprovoked. One of the best things about this Ghorman storyline, and it really shows the quality of writing on the show, is that for both Luthen and the Empire, Ghorman is their masterstroke. Neither one of them can get what they want if Ghorman is left in peace. This was all really set up in Luthen's season 1 speech when he says he's condemned to use the tools of his enemy to defeat them.
I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future.
Luthen and the Empire both decide that Ghorman has to be sacrificed for completely opposing reasons. And Luthen's dedication to this is really what drives the final wedge between him and Cassian.
If it goes up in flames, it will burn very brightly.
I love that they didn't just elevate Luthen to a position of leadership in the Rebel Alliance in Season 2. He's too unpredictable. He doesn't fit into the structure that the Rebels have at this point, and he's too radical. He is the radical to this version of the Alliance that Saw Gerrera was to him in Season 1, and this is all according to his plan. We know from the beginning that he doesn't see himself as a hero. He knows that he will likely be forgotten by history, largely because he's doing things that history would probably judge him harshly for.
She goes to Yavin and not you.
No Yavin for me.
There's still some bridges you haven't burned.
We'll take care of that today.
The 8th episode of this season, which is called Who Are You?, is one of the best episodes of TV I've ever seen. It unfolds with haunting inevitability as a protest is transformed by the Empire into a full-on slaughter. And the Empire orchestrates every moment, from sending unproven Imperial soldiers into the crowd to planting the sniper that kills the first Imperial and escalates the conflict. It is a cold-blooded plan executed efficiently. And I like that Cyril doesn't just blindly go along with it. When he realizes he's been played, that confrontation that he has with Dedra is both violent and visceral. You can feel the pain and the fear in both of them in that moment.
How long have you known about all this?
How long? We can discuss this later.
And the question really is he more concerned about the thousands of innocents at a minimum that are going to be slaughtered in the very near future? Or is he more upset that another one of his plans has blown up in his face? I really think that it's a little bit of both, but he can't ignore the slaughter that he himself has helped make into reality. I mean, it's the ultimate leopards ate my face moment. He thought that in cooperating with the Empire, he could get what he wanted and he was fighting for a greater good. And yet he sees at the end just exactly what the Empire is capable of. It's something he thought he was ready for, but I think it's pretty obvious that he wasn't. But the ultimate insult comes moments before his death, after he spots Cassian, the man who humiliated him, who put his entire life on the road to self-destruction. And that moment where Cyril has Cassian dead to rights at blaster point, ready to correct his original sin, only for Cassian to not even know who he is. I mean, that is almost Shakespearean in its level of tragedy.
Who are you?
Now, it's easy to forget that Cassian and Cyril were only in the same room, really, once before, back in Season 1, when Cassian held Karn at gunpoint as he and Luthen escaped. That incident left Karn disgraced and humiliated, and from that moment on, really, Cassian became his life's purpose. He was everything to Cyril, and yet to Cassian, he was just some inept corpo who wasn't worthy of killing at that time or even remembering. And Karn ended his life as he lived it, anonymous. All of his actions and his achievements completely irrelevant or forgotten, and he dies an unceremonious death, left as just another body in a pile of bodies. If Cyril's death had just been done for shock value, without the proper setup, then I think it would have felt like an anticlimax for a character that we've spent so much time with. But because of the way the show was written, You look in his eyes, you see that pain in his eyes combined with the betrayal from Dedra and the Empire, and you understand in that moment that for Cyril, really, his life is already over. It's already ended. The blaster bolt, that's just a formality. It's a really brilliant piece of writing that puts his entire story into context. And I'm curious to see what the real fallout is for Dedra, who we last saw having a complete breakdown as her career-making masterstroke was accomplished. Will she continue to serve in the Empire, likely close to Krennic, which would put her in close proximity to the Death Star, which probably wouldn't spell very many good things for her future? Or is she going to follow a different path? There are so many main characters, even with just 3 episodes left, that I'm curious to see what's going to happen with them, like Dedra and Luthen. We know where Cassian's going to end up, but I want to know what he does in these next 3 episodes to get him to the beginning of Rogue One. And that's one of the great things about this show. We have an endpoint that's set. We know where certain characters are going to end up. We know that certain characters aren't a part of the Star Wars mythology that we all know, and yet it's made us care about them and want to know what happens next. And there is still some business left with Cassian, who ends episode 9 as an officer in the rebellion, mainly because he doesn't have anywhere else to go. Marva is dead, Luthen is a pariah, and Bix, who was really his last connection to a singular humanity instead of the galaxy overall as part of the Alliance, made the choice to leave to ensure that Cassian would stay and fight. I was never really sure where Cassian's story with Bix was headed, but we do see her make that sacrificial choice for both of them by leaving Yavin and basically giving him no choice but to stay. And I love that this was set up in that scene with the Force healer on Yavin, where she sees something in Cassian, some greater purpose that hasn't yet paid off. And you can see that Bix believes it, even if Cassian doesn't.
He's a messenger. There's some place he needs to be.
I'm curious to know if we're going to see Bix again, or if theirs is just left to be a doomed love story, a reunion that's never going to happen. And again, when we talk about the smartness of the writing of this show, we know where Cassian is at the beginning of Rogue One, but we still have a little bit of distance to traverse in these last 3 episodes. But we're starting to see the formation of that core of the character who he was almost 10 years ago when we first met him. This disillusionment and this idea that anything can be sacrificed for the good of the Rebel Alliance, even if it means taking an action that some might say is disgraceful. This is a lesson that he learned from the very beginning with Luthen when we talk about taking a terrible action for a greater good. And this idea of being willing or being forced to sacrifice everything he's learned with several characters, Bix just being the latest.
We have to beat them. And I believe you have purpose in making that happen. I need to believe that.
Andor is a prequel to a prequel, which means it's in double jeopardy of doing things like introducing elements that show up later or existing elements from the Star Wars mythology in a way that might make you roll your eyes. But I think that the show's doing a lot of them really, really well. K2's introduction, for example, could have been an eye roller, but we see that his delivery to the rebellion comes at the hands of Sam, who was the young rebel on Ghorman who accidentally killed Cinta. This act was really redemptive for him. He became a better rebel. He said, well, I have to try to redeem myself in some other way. And even though he didn't know what he was doing, this is what brought K2 to the rebellion, who played a key part in the destruction of the Death Star. It's tying something like how did the rebels get K2 into the story of Andor in a way that feels much more organic and not like they're just putting fan service into the show. We've all seen it done badly so many times that it's worth mentioning when it's done well. The show also did a retcon, which I know can frustrate fans, by having Mon Mothma's escape from Coruscant orchestrated by Luthen and Cassian, but having the rebels hand her off to Gold Squadron for delivery to Yavin to match events that are already in canon. After all, she's now a figurehead, and the rebels aren't above a little bit of propaganda of their own. And it looks much better to have her delivered officially to the rebellion after taking a stand publicly against the Emperor by a group of hero rebel pilots than a morally gray part-timer. There were certain things that the show had to do, but it feels like every piece has been placed carefully and thoughtfully considered. And that seems like a very low bar to clear. You would think that every movie or TV show would do that, but not all of them do. And it's really refreshing to see it when it is actually done. And speaking of Mon Mothma, the 8th episode of this season was followed by an equally stellar 9th episode detailing her public condemnation of the Emperor and escape from the Senate.
The monster who will come for us all soon enough is Emperor Palpatine.
Her de facto farewell speech to the Senate was both reflective in many ways of modern times and seems to fit right in with the Star Wars universe, and it marked a significant turning point. The time for shadowy resistance is over. It's time for open rebellion to officially start. I said this in my review, I think, of the first 3 episodes of this season, but I have to say it again. What they've done with Mon Mothma in this series has been really impressive. They've taken a character who could have been a one-note representation of absolute good and given Genevieve O'Reilly something much more complex, which is a woman of privilege who feels compelled to take these actions but isn't really sure if she can do it or if she has the ability to do it. Her convictions are stronger than her nerve, and it's something that she's aware of, that Cassian is aware of, and that Luthen is aware of.
I'm not sure I can do this.
Welcome to the rebellion.
Now, obviously, watching that 9th episode, I knew that Cassian and Mon Mothma weren't going to be captured and executed by the Empire because, well, I mean, they're in later movies and shows. It'd be kind of a radical departure if they did that. But the tension in their escape from the Senate was still there, largely because it was chaotic and improvised. Rebellions are built on hope, as Cassian is told by the desk clerk on Ghorman, a line that obviously stuck with him because he would later share that with Jyn Erso. But the series is also about how rebellions are built on the actions of people who don't really know what they're doing, only that they have no choice but to do something, even in the face of impossible odds. As Saw Gerrera, who's another morally gray character, tells Wilman in this second batch of episodes, revolution is not for the sane.
We'll all be dead before the Republic is back, and yet, here we are.
So there are 3 episodes of Andor left, which are supposedly going to take us right up to the beginning-ish of Rogue One. And if they can do these 3 episodes well, then this will easily be my favorite of the Disney Plus Star Wars shows. And when you combine it with Rogue One, I think Andor and Rogue One together are going to form my favorite piece of Star Wars storytelling, period. And that's not to say that the original movies aren't great. That's not to say that there aren't other great parts of the series, shows, episodes, etc. But when you look at the whole package, I'm talking about depth and complexity of character, quality of writing, thematic resonance, plus all the action and adventure we know from Star Wars, I don't see how Andor and Rogue One can be topped. That is, of course, provided that it doesn't completely derail in these last 3 episodes. But if it doesn't, then I think that this show and Rogue One should be required viewing for any creative who's looking to go into existing mythology for a franchise of any kind and try to add to that mythology. Because what this series and Rogue One have done is to take characters and events that could be uninteresting because you know who lives and who doesn't, and made those things essential. Instead of just reenacting the Ghorman massacre as it's been described and depicted in other Star Wars media, they decided instead to tell a better story, a much more complex story. And that's what you should do. You should be ambitious, you should respect what's come before, but you should look to break new boundaries. Andor is proof that you can push those boundaries, the boundaries of what's known, and tell a different kind of story inside a familiar set of events. And I, for one, can't wait to see how it ends, even though I kind of already know. So those are my thoughts on the last several episodes of Andor, specifically the Ghorman storyline. What do you think? Are you looking forward to these last 3 episodes? Let me know down in the comments below. And before we go, I want to thank the sponsor for this show, Chubbies. With the weather warming up, one of my go-to outfits is my Friday shirt from Chubbies. It's great for a relaxing day outdoors. And speaking of outdoors, isn't it about time that you let your legs escape from their winter prison? They've been cooped up in jeans and pants all winter, and they're ready to be liberated courtesy of the Line Swim collection from Chubbies. You'll be as comfortable and natural as you can legally be with Chubbies trunks, featuring wild prints, liners to prevent chafing, and 4-way stretch that's optimal for those crazy dives that you've been wanting to try out all year. These are swimsuits that are meant to make waves, and you'll be getting a lot of waves from people who enjoy cool swimwear, I guess. The point is, you're going to love them. And when it's time to towel off and leave the pool, you can throw on a pair of Chubby's Everywhere shorts, built for all of your summer adventures. You can also pair these shorts with a performance polo or a Sunday shirt, really whatever outfit your mind can dream up. Chubby's has it, providing those dreams contain clothing that is in stock on their website. Whether you're getting dressed for your workday, a workout, or a weekend getaway, Chubby's has you covered. And for a limited time, Chubby's is giving viewers of the show 20% off your order with my code DAN20 at chubbyshorts.com. That's code DAN20 at chubbyshorts.com. Support the show and tell them that I sent you. Don't blend in with the crowd. Stand out with Chubby's. Thanks to Chubby's for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for watching. Be sure to stay tuned right here for more movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.